You know the story we always hear about the big tech giants, right? It's always about their massive scale, unstoppable growth, and how they're just destined to take over everything. But what if a lot of that story is just, well, hype? Let's dig into the buzzwords that keep this whole narrative afloat.
Platform, network effects, winner take all. Man, you hear these words thrown around all the time. They're basically used as magic words that are supposed to make us think a business is a surefire bet. The second someone says, oh, it's a platform with amazing network effects, it's like our brains just switch off. But honestly, these terms often hide way more than they actually tell us.
And this gets to the heart of what author Jonathan A. Nee calls the platform delusion. It's this simple idea that we've all been a little bit blinded by the shiny new words, and we've stopped asking the tough, fundamental questions about what makes a business truly built to last. So in this explainer, we're going to pull back that curtain and take a hard look at the delusion.
Let's kick things off with the biggest, most overused buzzword of them all, network effects. You know the idea. A service gets better and more valuable the more people who use it. And look, it's a totally real thing, but the power of network effects is almost always blown way out of proportion and, frankly, just not well understood.
This quote right here from the author just hits the nail on the head. Just saying a business has network effects tells you almost nothing useful. The key words there are very dramatically. So the real question isn't if they exist, it's about how strong are they? How defensible are they really?
So yeah, are all network effects created equal? Oh, absolutely not. Not even close. The actual strength of a network effect totally depends on the nitty-gritty details of the business itself.
Okay, so this is super helpful. It gives us a framework to cut through all that noise. It shows that the real strength of a network effect comes down to three key things: how complex the service is, how diverse the people using it are, and the size of the market. Let's break that down.
First up, complexity. Think about it like this, ride sharing. Once you can get a car in, say, under 5 minutes, does adding another 100 drivers to your city really make the service that much better for you? Not really, right? The value kind of flatlines. Now compare that to something like the Windows operating system. Every single new developer that builds an app for Windows makes the platform more valuable for every single user. See? That's a much deeper, more complex, and way more defensible network effect. It's a whole different ballgame.
All right, so the next big piece of this delusion is the assumption we all seem to make that the new, shiny digital version of a business is automatically better than its old-school analog version. But when you look closer, the reality is, well, it's a lot messier than that.
Let's just look at the trade-offs here. On the one hand, yeah, digital platforms have lower startup costs, which is a massive plus. But that also means it's way easier for new competitors to jump in. And while you can reach a global audience instantly, that also means your customers can switch to a competitor with literally a single click. That loyalty is fragile.
And this leads to a pretty shocking idea. Sometimes going digital can actually make a business weaker in the long run. It strips away all the old physical advantages that used to protect it. There's no better example of this than the newspaper industry.
So let's dive into a perfect case study, the New York Times. I mean, it's the classic analog platform, right? It connected readers with advertisers. It was forced to go through this brutal digital transition, and the result was probably not what you'd think.
And wow, this slide really tells the story. Just look at the difference between 2000 and 2020. Print advertising revenue completely collapsed. I mean, look at that drop, from over $1.3 billion down to just $165 million. But check out what rose from the ashes: digital subscriptions. They had to build an entirely new business model just to survive.
So here's the crucial takeaway. The Times basically traded its cozy, local monopoly for a spot in a vicious, global fight for your attention. And yes, it survived, and you could even say it's thriving now. But you could also argue it's in a much more precarious position than it was back when it owned the physical printing presses and all the delivery trucks.
The whole New York Times story really shows us that to make it in the digital age, you have to find new kinds of strength. Which, brings up the bigger question. If it's not the buzzwords, then what is it? What really separates the tech giants that last from the ones that are just a flash in the pan? What are the real pillars of power?
Okay, this chart is fascinating because it tells you so much at a glance. It shows the profit margins for the big tech companies. Look at Facebook. Their margins are just astronomical. But then you look over at Amazon and Netflix, and theirs are way, way smaller. This proves there is no such thing as a single platform business model. These are totally different animals.
So to really get what's going on, we need a better tool. This framework from the book is perfect. It looks past the buzzwords at the real sources of power.
You've got supply-side advantages, like pure scale and owning your tech. And then you've got demand-side advantages, like how locked in your customers are and how much of a pain it is for them to leave.
And when you use this framework, everything just clicks into place. You see that Facebook is really the only pure network effects company on this list. Its value is almost entirely based on who else is using it. But Amazon? Its power comes from something very physical and old school. Its massive investment in warehouses and logistics. Apple's advantage is its iron grip on its hardware and software, that ecosystem that's so hard to leave. For Netflix, it's just sheer scale. It can outspend anyone on content. And Google's power comes from decades of perfecting its search technology. They're all powerful for very different and often very traditional business reasons.
Okay, so let's bring this all home. How can you and I use this to be smarter about the businesses we see every day? How do we actually learn to see past all the hype?
Here's a simple 4-step playbook you can use. First, when you hear the buzzwords, just notice them. Step 2, immediately start questioning the strength of the network effects. Ask yourself, how strong are they really? Third, look for the real advantages on both the supply and the demand side. And finally, step 4, look for real, sticky, durable customer captivity. How hard is it for people to actually leave?
And really, that's the bottom line of this whole thing. There's no digital magic dust. Real lasting success, the kind that builds companies that endure for decades, it comes from the same old-fashioned things it always has, building something that is incredibly, incredibly difficult for your competitors to copy.
So I'll just leave you with this question. The next time you hear some startup or company being hyped up as a platform, are you going to see a guaranteed winner, or are you going to be the one who looks for the delusion?